Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Hope your Connections Week is going very well. We're here to talk briefly about academic integrity. We have the campus guru, Tim Cason, to talk to us, and I will yield to him very shortly. Tim's got so many titles and responsibilities, I can't remember him, so I'm just going to introduce him as Tim. But I do want to talk about the importance of academic integrity in a virtual environment. Obviously, academic integrity is always important, and we are always on guard against lack thereof. However, the virtual world presents us with additional challenges, and so that's why we're having this special session today. It won't just be about the virtual world, but we want to remind you how important it is. And one thing to remember, and I fully support the fact that when things are elevated to the level in Tim's office, that we take an educational approach. And I think that's very, very important. It's very student friendly. Yes, there are people who are being deceptive, but there are a great number of students who just don't get this area. And so I love the way we kind of take the first time they're presented with a case, they handle it as a purely educational event, but they do get it into the record. And so I want to impress upon everyone the importance of don't give people passes on their first offense. Turn those in and just know that it'll be handled as an educational process the first time. If you choose to handle it yourself the first time, and then you wait for the second time expecting heavier consequences, well, the first time Student Development Services deals with it, they're going to handle it again as an educational event. So if you don't report the first one, you're looking at their third offense being the first time there's any painful consequences, so to speak, in as much as we give those. So that's my 2 cents, and I ask you to listen closely and enjoy the show. And with that, I will yield to Mr. Cason.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Tim Cason here. And like Dr. Mills was saying, we're here to talk about academic integrity in a virtual environment. And he gave just the best framework for how we want to look at today. Not only, this is a really challenging time for everyone, our faculty, our staff, and especially our students. And so we definitely want to make sure that we're approaching these situations as educational and as compassionate as possible, because that is when the approach is most effective in reducing recidivism and encouraging learning. But academic integrity, there are issues of honesty and fairness. If there is a student who engages in violations of academic integrity, we're looking at creating skills gaps for them down the road. There's just tons and tons of stuff that cause it of concern. So while we need to be compassionate and empathetic and understanding, we do need to hold students accountable. And so today I want to talk to you all a little bit about what some of the research says in terms of why students cheat, what are some of the motivators, and then look at some different strategies that we can all utilize. Some of them may work in your class, some of them may not. And so we'll just put several different options up there so that we can explore them together and talk about what would be most effective for you in implementing. I am going to be presenting, and so Tara will be fielding the questions in the chat. So if at any point in time you do have a question, just throw it in there. She'll get that posted and then make me aware of it so that we can get your questions answered. We'll also be doing a few different interactive activities. So make sure that you have a second browser or second device ready, because we're going to do some poll everywhere. So I do know that some of us are joining us for the first time. And I haven't had the opportunity to meet all of you, but my name is Tim Cason, and like Dr. Mills said, I have a very long title. I'm the Director of Student Conduct and Prevention Education, as well as serve as the Deputy Title IX Coordinator for the Trinity River campus at Tarrant County College. I am entering and have started my 4th year here at TCC, and so pretty ingrained in the community at this point, and have had the privilege of meeting most of you. And so I'm really excited to get to spend some time with you today. I purposely put my photo in this slide just because I think it's really easy to forget that there's faces to the names of the people we're interacting with in this virtual environment. I want to leave my video off though because of some bandwidth issues we're having at my house, but I promise you I did fix my hair today. So today we're going to talk a little bit about academic integrity. We're going to test your knowledge about what the current policies and procedures are and go over them for you all, but we're going to spend the majority of the time providing tips and tricks for how to manage it in the virtual environment. And I like to start with framing it in terms of the research. So when looking at the research does show that the following types of students are more likely to engage in cheating. And it's students with low self-efficacy, students who have higher workloads, students who are high achieving, or students who are in their first year of college. And so when you hear that, you're probably thinking, well, that's literally all of our students. And I would completely agree with you. And so that's why it's super important that we talk about it and let you all know that the framing around this is how to prevent it for all of our students, not just a very specific population. When it comes to the external factors that then promote cheating, it's often, the research shows that when there are unclear definitions about what the classroom expectations are for a specific course assignment or examination, if the students are engaging with a high stakes assessment, so like a final exam or a paper that's worth 40% of your grade, the higher the stakes, the more likely students are prone to engage in cheating because there's more on the line. And then also just having a general belief that they believe that cheating won't get caught or that it's really easy to get away with. So moving forward, I want to frame this presentation also with a quote and emphasize that while today we're going to spend a lot of time essentially about how to prevent cheating and how to prevent plagiarism in your classes, I want to make it known that we don't ever design assessments to catch cheaters. We design assessments so that students can show that they've learned in our classrooms, and if there is some of those downriver effects of a student engaging in academic integrity violations, we're going to make sure that we get that responded to. So go ahead and grab those devices. I'm going to give you about a 5 to 10 seconds to get your device and go to the URL listed on the screen. It's pollev, so pollev.com/TimCason419. Give you about 10 seconds. You should also see the URL at the very, very top of the page. And so while some of you are still pulling it up, those of you that have, if you want to go ahead and start responding to the prompt you see on your device or on the screen, and let us know, so far, based off of where you're sitting right now, what is the most confusing part of the academic integrity referral process at TCC? If you don't think that there is something that is confusing about it, that's okay. Just go ahead and throw that in there as well so that we can start tracking that and making sure that it's working correctly. Remembering where to start, yeah, that's a good answer. It's definitely something that we see at times. Knowing what all to submit. Great, I'm glad to hear that someone doesn't think that it's confusing and that another one says none, nothing. All right. When to go ahead and refer as it feels punitive or consider that the student just really needs to be educated by the instructor. Yeah, that's a really great point. And so hopefully Dr. Mills' introduction framed that for you well, but we'll definitely talk more about how do we frame this as more of an educational moment versus a punitive moment. So great point. The next steps after the referral is made, yeah, we'll make sure to clarify that as well. And then remembering where the form is. Yeah, absolutely. I see that someone already threw it in the chat and you're going to see the URL throughout this presentation though. tccd.edu/incident report is where you go to report anything to my office. And then how bad does the case need to be before it should be referred? The answer is it should always be referred, regardless of how, quote, bad the case is. If there's a minimal offense, is it considered an academic integrity problem? Yeah. How to provide the proof? Absolutely. We'll talk about some of those things. All right. Thank you. I really, really appreciate y'all's feedback there. So hopefully we're going to get to some of these points, but if at any point in time we'll have some Q&A at the end, we don't, let me know and we'll make sure to clarify it for you all. So within that same, you should either have to just refresh your page or it should refresh automatically. But let's start with this. You think that a student may have cheated or plagiarized in your class. What is the first thing that you should do? Let's test that knowledge.
Tim?
Yes.
I'm getting some feedback from some folks that there's a little bit of a delay in people's responses posting.
Okay.
So you might want to give more than just a few seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and I'll give about 10 more seconds for this specific answer on the page. All right, it looks like we've been pretty stationary there for a moment. So I'm really, really happy to see the results of this question here, because that is absolutely correct. The first thing and the number one thing that all faculty members and instructors should do when they have a concern that a student has engaged in cheating and plagiarism is contact the student regarding those concerns. Yes, you're going to need to likely post those grades with the point deduction. Yes, you are definitely going to need to submit a report to our office. But the number one thing that we want to do is make sure that we contact that student directly to try and have a conversation before we post those point deductions, before we submit that report. And I'm going to go ahead and advance my slide and talk about some of those specific conversation pointers. But I want to frame this as within my office, when I'm reaching out to students to address these concerns, I promise, and this is, you know, it's a point for growth, I think, just in general within higher education, that the number one piece of feedback I receive from students in regard to these incidents is that they don't feel as though the instructor fully gave them respect in the incident because the instructor didn't try to address the concern with them first. Oftentimes students express the need or the frustration with that they didn't learn about the incident until they saw that the points were deducted on their Blackboard page. That very well could be due to the fact that they don't check their email or they don't check those Blackboard post-it notes and stuff like that. But I would argue that when we're posting that point deduction, it's simultaneously with sending an email or simultaneously with the Blackboard comment. It can lead to a presumption that you've already made your decision and that there's no real point in engaging in the conversation because the decision's already been made and they don't understand what can and cannot be reversed within the context of the academic setting. So the number one thing I would always say is make sure that you give the student enough time to try and respond to you before finalizing any consequence. Like maybe sending an email, giving them, 2 to 5 days to respond to you. If you feel comfortable calling, engaging in a verbal conversation, that's great. Set up a video conference with them, whatever you need to do, but try to get a conversation on the record with them first, because then that allows you to highlight for the student what are the specific areas of concern. Sometimes these incidents are intentional, sometimes they're not, but at least we're giving the student the opportunity to share their perspective with us. It also allows you the opportunity to ask the student to explain a little bit more about their writing or exam completion process. So get a better understanding of what websites they were visiting to prepare and conduct their research. Where did they learn about citation? How did they go about completing that citation? Did they do it on their own, or did they rely on one of those citation generation sites? And then, if you're not fully convinced, or if the student is holding to it when they say that they didn't engage in cheating or plagiarism, but at least based off of the documentation you see, there seems to be a pretty clear case, you can give them the opportunity to try and explain some of the concepts and the content from the assignment, because oftentimes when students have engaged in academic dishonesty is they can't fully explain the concepts or the content from that assignment that they submitted. You can ask them to explain if there's any verb tense changes, if there's any changes in citation, formatting, all of that. And it allowing the student to respond to your concerns and share their perspectives helps the student feel as though they're a person and that they were given a voice in this process. It doesn't negate your responsibility to still submit that report, and I think that it's important to let the student know that, but letting them know it is an educational process and that we're going to work with the student to learn from the incident, whether it's intentional or not intentional. And at the end of the day, some students will own up to it right away. I will say the majority of the students that I interact with completely own up to, I just didn't know how to cite, or I was really rushed and so I downloaded an essay online. That is very much the most common conversation I have as well. Any questions so far, Tara?
No, sir.
Awesome. So when you're submitting that report, just to clear it up a little bit in terms of where it goes, you submit the report to tccd.edu/incident report. After you've tried to have that conversation, if you give the student 3 to 5 days and they don't respond, that's okay. Go ahead and finalize whatever academic consequence you want to implement and then submit that report. But like Dr. Mills said, if it's the first referral we're receiving for that student, we're going to document the case as an information only case, which means we're not technically finding them in violation of any school policy. And we're going to provide them with educational opportunities and resources in hopes that we educate them and avoid recidivism back through our process. If the student already has an information only case on file, we will then go ahead and proceed through the full student conduct process, which involves an investigation, a meeting with the vice president, and a determination if they did officially violate a school policy. But like Dr. Mills said, this is tracked district-wide. This is not tracked individually by the semester or individually by the course. And so it's important to know that if the student intentionally or unintentionally is engaging in cheating within your class, there's a high likelihood they're doing the same thing in their other classes at Northeast campus or at our Connect campus or Southeast. And so if we already have a referral on file, we're going to document and move forward with the conduct process. But if I receive a report from you all that has 3 separate incidents, that's still going to trigger just that first time information only case with us, because we as an office have not had the opportunity to provide any intervention to hopefully decrease recidivism. And so making sure that you grade early, you grade often, and you submit these individually. If they all come in the same day, again, we're going to just process it as one day and one time, and the first time, regardless of the number that are coming in at the same time.
Tim, we have questions.
Yes.
First of all, could you go back to the Poll Everywhere link? And
Yes.
I can drop it in the chat. The second, the actual, oh yeah, I guess it's up there at the top. Is that polleverywhere.com, Tim Kaysen 419?
Yes. So it's
Okay.
pollev.com/Tim Kaysen 419.
And then the second question is, are these suggestions applicable to the use of Proctorio?
Yes. The suggestions are applicable to the use of Proctorio.
And third question, I find that many of our international ESL students are using copy paste and not citing appropriately. Does the Writing Lab have any sessions for these specific students?
That is such a great question. I really appreciate whoever asked that. I can't see it, but thank you. Yes, we do have, and especially more recently, I will say we've seen a pretty big uptick in our students who are ESOL, who are not learning either properly how to cite before entering into a course. And so it does lead to some of these issues. And so again, we're very intentional with that first time information only, providing them with those opportunities and resources. And then also, following up with them and customizing our outcome if we do have to go through the student conduct process. I do not know if the Writing Center at Trinity River has a specific course for ESOL students. That is something that I'm happy to follow up on. Tara, if you have the capability to write that down and let me know later, and I can follow up on that.
And we do have some folks from the Writing and Learning Center on here. So if any of y'all want to drop in the chat, then we can also post that information as well.
Yes. And one piece that I'll add to that is I do think that's where it also comes down to us as instructors and as leaders in the course to set those expectations early. Even though they're ESOL, they've reached a point now where they're expected to abide by our policies and our procedures. And so clearly articulating and outlining that for them in terms of expectations, and then providing them with the opportunity to meet with you or meet with the Writing Center to learn about how to do that if that is an area of concern. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question, and I'm going to ask, what should be included in your referral when you submit it to our office? Give it about 15 more seconds. Alrighty, so it looks like we still got some answers coming in, but for the most part, you all have just absolutely nailed it in terms of it. The answer is all the above. These are all important pieces of information for us to understand a little bit because, and I can walk through why each one. When it comes to the ICR syllabus, it's really important for us to see how was academic integrity and expectations framed prior, because that helps us in our conversation with the students talk about, well, here's the expectations, this was articulated for you. Let's talk about why we didn't execute upon those expectations. An assignment description is really important just because I will fully own that I am not an expert in chemistry or an expert in fiction writing or anything like that. And so it just provides really helpful information to myself and to Dr. Amen when evaluating the situation to determine, okay, how was this assignment framed? What was the objective? What were the learning outcomes? And where did the student execute upon those, or where did they not execute upon those? So it's really important context. Obviously, a copy of the student's assignment is really important because we need to see where the areas of concern are. If you have a SafeAssign Turnitin.com report, or if there's a summary from Proctorio that was highlighting the areas of concern, definitely make sure that you submit those for us, because then we're able to not only see your areas of concern in a narrative fashion, but then we have documentation outlining that. And then again, the academic consequences, if any, were applied, because we like to try and track those on our end as well, just so that we have a totality of the picture when we're running end of the year reports. So I'm going to go ahead and advance now. And again, just remember to include all of this information to our office, including if you've had communication with the student, whether it's via Blackboard comments or email or a phone call. Try to include that in the submission as well. And then in terms of the copy of the assignment with concerns outlined, that often is going to look like an turnitin.com safe assign report or a report from Proctorio. And if you're not sure, just reach out and I can provide some clarity, or, you know, once you submit the report, I'm sure many of you are aware, I'll follow up and ask questions, and that's just to make sure that we have all the pieces outlined. So when submitting that report, this is a little screenshot of a section of the reporting link. So when you go to tccd.edu/incident report, this is a portion that's going to come up. And right there in the highlighted section where you see nature of this report, there's going to be a drop-down list that gives you the option to select between care teams, student conduct, Title IX, and academic integrity. And that's where you're going to want to select academic matters, because it's not a care team matter in terms of there's no intervention for distress or anything like that that the care team needs to do in terms of students. It is strictly an academic matter, so report it that way. And if you're not sure, you can always call and debrief, or just submit it to academic integrity. And if there are signs that our students are if there are signs that our students are in distress when they're going through our process, we can then refer them to our student care team process. Are there any questions so far?
Nope.
All right. So next question, academic consequences for incidents of academic misconduct are outlined in the student handbook. True or false? We'll give a few seconds. So the specific consequences, like if a student's going to receive a 0 or an F, anything like that, are those outlined in the student handbook? About 10 more seconds. All right, were there any questions at this point?
Yeah, we got the suggestion that could this previous slide or question become part of this report to you? So could and then the bullet should be included in this reporting screen, I think, just for guidance. So kind of a question, kind of a comment.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely something we can explore. I'm not sure who submitted that, but if they want to follow up with me after this, we can talk about it. There may be some confusion or challenges just because that reporting link is for care team, for Title IX incidents, and so we'll have to game plan how to try to not confuse. You know, if someone's submitting a Title IX report, they're like, wait, why do I need a syllabus? But we can talk about that offline. So interesting. I'm sorry to say that the answer to this question is false. And so it looks like this might be an area where we can provide some additional clarification for you all. The specific academic consequences when it comes to a student, what those consequences will be. So if I submit a plagiarized assignment, the first one I'm going to get a 0, and then the second time in this course I'm going to get an F. That is not, I repeat, not outlined in the student handbook. And the reason for that is because you all, as individuals who are leading these courses, have academic freedom to establish what the specific consequence in your class should be. I would argue that the majority of the time, what I see is that instructors give students a 0 on the first assignment that has concerns with academic integrity. And then if there's a second incident within that same course in that semester, the instructor then fails them for the course. Now, Some instructors do just go ahead and fail the student for the course right away. Some instructors give the student the opportunity to recomplete the assignment for partial credit. And so there's no way for us to put that in the handbook right now without some type of institutional discussion and institutional policy about what those standards are. And so we're kind of battling, allowing our faculty members and instructors to have the freedom to make that determination versus consistency. But at the end of the day, it all starts with the syllabus. You are the expectation setter in your class. And so students, it's important to highlight that students do not have the same perception about what is considered acceptable based on research. Instructors will say, you know, unless I tell you you can do it, the assumption should be that you cannot. Students have the exact opposite of that. Unless I'm told I cannot do it, I'm going to do it. And so it's really important that you as the instructor outline very, very clearly in your syllabus and your ICR and your assignment descriptions, what are those expectations? What citation format do you prefer? Can they use electronics like calculators, or can they have open book? Can they work in a group setting on these assignments? Those all need to be clearly outlined in each of your syllabus and ICR. And then you need to provide a summary of what the academic consequences within your course will be if the student does violate academic integrity. And it needs to be very clearly marked out. Like if there's a first referral or first concern, they're gonna get a 0 on that assignment and be allowed to make up for 50% of the grade or whatever you decide. Excuse me. If there's a second incident, the student will receive an F for the entire course. That needs to be clearly marked out so students understand the expectations. And then we as instructors need to make sure that we are reviewing that with our students early and often so that they understand. I can help provide and frame the language within these sections. So if you need assistance with that, please let me know. I'm happy to debrief and set up a one-on-one consultation, because the goal is to put it all out there for the student at the very beginning. The main thing that's outlined in the handbook is what are our definitions for what is considered plagiarism, cheating, collusion, and how do we go through the student conduct process, not necessarily the academic consequence, because again, that is determined by the faculty member. So are there any questions at this point, Tara? I want to make sure that I clarify anything.
No, sir.
Okay, awesome. So it's really important too with these expectations, we're going to get to tips and tricks in a second, that we don't just tell the student to review them on their own, that we actively with our students. So again, let me know if you need help developing those expectations. It looks like we got one question that came in, Carter. Tara, what is that?
Is there specific verbiage required, or is there a resource or template for courses that were face-to-face but transitioned to online that we can implement in our current syllabi?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that, so the district automatically includes a very short statement about how, you know, students are expected to maintain academic integrity, or, you know, and if there's any incidents of academic dishonesty, we're going to refer that to the appropriate campus official. But then it's on the faculty member to go in and further define that. We don't currently have a template in terms of like what we will use as a campus or as a division. But if that's something that we want to explore, I can connect with Tara, Dr. Mills after this. In the interim, I'm happy to provide you with templates and game plan some options for you in the interim until we establish, if it's necessary, some type of overall divisional or campus-based statement. So we're going to move into the tips and tricks area. And the last question that I have for you all in terms of poll everywhere is, we've heard a lot of great things so far on Monday and Tuesday from American Public University. And so I just want to hear a little bit from you. What was one takeaway that you've had from American Public University's presentations this week so far? And I'm only going to give a few seconds for this one just because I want to make sure we have enough time to go over all of the resources. Engaging the students, yeah. Okay. Online presence is important, absolutely. No information in the student handbook, okay. Yeah, it's important to have an organized network of online resources and communication for faculty and students. I agree. And then building a presence in the class, that's great. So I apologize if any of your responses are going to get cut off, but I am going to go ahead and advance the slide. So thank you so much. Here are some recommendations I have for you all. First and foremost, orientation, and that doesn't mean orientation to the institution, I mean orientation into your class, is going to be super vital. And instead of challenging our students to just go and review the ICR and syllabus on their own, I really think it's important that we take the time out of our day to have a live session that can even be recorded, maybe, where we walk through those syllabus expectations and clearly articulate to our students what that looks like. Quizzes for online students in terms of the academic integrity and syllabus process during the course orientation will be pivotal, and we can call those like a course readiness quiz. Not only does it make the students aware of the policies, but it also can reduce the students' questions regarding assignment due dates and other information in the course. So make sure that you also highlight in those if you're planning on using SafeAssign, Turnitin.com, or Proctorio. Flower Darby, who is leading research in this area, we will talk about her in a second, but she notes in her research that taking the syllabus quiz is a new level for the online environment, and also you can ask the students to complete what's known as a goals contract. So traditional age students really do lack the higher execution function skills needed to know how and when to ask for help. And so the goals contract will challenge the student to review your course, examine where they may struggle with it, and then requires them to plan out some resources that they can use when they face with that problem. So you're creating a goal and you're challenging them either through a blog post or a discussion board about how to practice their problem solving skills, and that allows them to create agency and internal responsibility. There are also some resources with our library, and so Tara's going to drop into the chat. There is this really great quiz that our library has developed for students to take, and it reviews plagiarism specifically and what the expectations are there. And so I know a lot of faculty and instructors do put that in as a required assignment within the first week of the semester, where the student takes that quiz and then provides the results to them. Make sure you limit the number of the time during which your student can complete an online assignment. So instead of opening up an exam for 48 hours, that creates a really large window for students to share answers. So make sure that you limit it down to something that's considered reasonable, but would prevent them from looking up answers or creating opportunities to share them. So traditionally, we should be cycling out a lot of our questions each semester. So developing, 25% new questions and putting them on our exams while retiring some of our ones that we maybe use more frequently. And it's great because it allows you to create a quiz bank of questions and then setting them up in the system to be randomized, not only in terms of the number the question pops up in, so it'll pop up in 7 here, but 1 on this person's test, but also randomizing the answers for the students too, because then they'll have a more difficult time matching answers and questions and sharing that with their colleagues. You can also include a waiver. And so at the top of every online assignment, we could put a statement that says something to the effect of, I certify that all work on this assessment is entirely my own and does not violate TCC's academic integrity policy. Because then again, you're putting it at the forefront for the student of here's the expectations and we have these policies. So I can provide that language to you later in my whole slide deck. Resources, consider using services like SafeAssign, Turnitin, and Proctorio, especially on your big assignments. And then also don't allow feedback to your students regarding their grades until everyone in the course is done, because then it will prevent the students from sharing that feedback. And when you do share the feedback, if you do post the questions and answers on your Blackboard page, I would encourage you only to share what the correct answers are in like an explanation fashion versus sharing the answers with the question, because then it makes it harder for them to circulate those around for future semesters. Any questions, Tara?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Amy, the library plagiarism quiz is in the chat or in the Q&A. I'll drop it here again as well, just so that everyone can see it again.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Awesome. So a couple more pieces of feedback. If you have the capability, I would really also encourage you to practice, allow students to take practice tests, maybe from an old exam that you've retired. This will reduce their desire to go online and search for resources. And a big thing too, students say when they're coming to our office is the reason they panic is because they just don't fully understand the format. And while we can explain to them it's going to be 25 multiple choice, 2 essay questions, that can be sometimes hard to visualize for our students. And so giving them some practice tests will allow them to see the layout and experience for themselves, and then help them understand how they can better prepare for future assignments. And so it actually reduces the desire to cheat. In terms of your assessments, some instructors do drop the lowest test grade, essay, or quiz grade for students. And this is a really, really great piece that helps also reduce the quote need to cheat from students, because they know that at least they'll have a little bit of leniency there. Some instructors will work it into their classroom expectations that if a student has been discovered to have plagiarized or cheated on an exam, quiz, essay, that grade cannot be dropped as part of this kind of process and policy. So that's something you may want to consider. There are multiple grades, and so if you have a fewer number of grades that students receive, so if you only have 1 or 2 assignments built into the whole semester, students are much more likely to cheat. And so if you have a larger number of assignments that are varying in terms of their weight in the class, it also can reduce the need to cheat. And then provide a variety of question styles. And so when it comes to assessment, you want to use multiple choice, short answer application, essay questions, because if you vary it, it gives the students opportunity to practice different strategies, but also it reduces the ability for them to share it out with their colleagues. And then also build in a series of dates for different stages in an essay, so you can catch that plagiarism early. So if you require them to submit 1 or 2 drafts of their essay before the final grade, that's worth 25% of their semester grade, that can catch it early. And then feedback, grade early and give feedback early and often, because then that allows us to catch any unintentional or intentional behavior. Any questions, Tara?
Yes, Tim. Will this slideshow be available to our faculty who are participating today?
Yes, I will absolutely share it.
Thank you.
And you can see all of my notes in the notes section too. So a lot of chicken scratch. So Flower Darby, like I said, great resource. You can Google her name and it's the first website that comes up. She does a lot of really cool things. She has a lot of really cool podcasts on her website as well. So one of them is T for Teaching, which talks about pandemic related remote learning. It's a quick 20-minute listen, but there's other resources there as well. So I really encourage you to explore some of her resources, because she is just phenomenal at talking about not only practical steps, but like paradigm shifts when it comes to classrooms online. And my last little note is just knowing that you want to start small and make few changes at a time, because if we do a complete overhaul at one time, it's hard really to know what is being successful and what's not. And so we're all going to be learning and growing, and that's okay, because we're going to make mistakes in this new environment. And so let's start small, make few incremental changes as we see issues arise. And then from there, we can really create a really great course for our students. Not that you already haven't, because y'all are all phenomenal, but making those few changes for the online environment will be key. And then just remember to practice empathy. These are very, very unusual times. And so it's really important to determine what matters for you in your course and where you can be flexible. Students may be completing their coursework on their phone. And so is it okay to accept maybe a screenshot or a picture of an assignment versus the actual Word document? That's not for me to answer. That's really for you all, but I just want you to think about, where can we let humanity shine while also holding students accountable and help them achieve their learning, but do it in a kind way. And please, please, please be kind to yourself. I know that this is a difficult time. I find myself very frequently frustrated with different things during this crazy time, but we really need to give ourselves a lot of grace, because we're really doing the best we can with some really challenging situations. All of these resources are in my slides, so right here, so look at them if you'd like. And then if there are any last minute questions, I know we're about 4 minutes over. And so if there are any last minute questions I can answer at this time.
There's nothing posted, but I would like to go ahead and just remind everyone that from 9 to 12, you're slated for faculty compliance training. We do have some pretty aggressive deadlines coming up for the pandemic flu awareness training, the hashtag not anymore training, the Texas anti-sexual harassment training, and a bystander intervention for employees. Now, 3 of those, all the ones dealing kind of with Title IX and sexual harassment, are all due Monday. So make sure that you make those your priority. And then the pandemic flu awareness is due October 1st. And then we do have some fun slated for this afternoon with the trivia at Trinity River at 12:45. Links to all this information for the compliance training are in Learn Center, and the link for the trivia at Trinity River is available on the Connections Week schedule. Any parting questions?
I just want to say thank you all so much for your time and attention. I really appreciate it. If you need anything from me in terms of the resources we discussed, so sample syllabus statements, you want to set up a one-on-one where we can debrief how to frame some of this stuff in your syllabus. I know that, there's a quick turnaround in terms of classes starting on Monday, but if we can make any of those edits before then or within the first week and just make sure students are very well aware of those changes, I think we're going to be in a good place. So please let me know how I can help. I want to support you in any way I can.
Tim is available for division and department meetings, so please reach out to him. And also, just a closing note, you're getting some thank you posts. Just kind of an interesting thing about the Q&A here in Teams Live is that if you respond to a post that you've already posted, then it doesn't let us post it again. So on the Q&A, so be sure to post fresh things if you want those to be seen. But Stephen Lamont has also mentioned that the Writing and Learning Center has several workshops and resources for helping to combat academic integrity issues and plagiarism.
I love it. All right, friends. Please absolutely stay safe. Know that you are in my thoughts and prayers if you accept them. This is going to be really challenging for all of us, but I know that we as a campus can pull together to really provide a really great experience, not only for each other, but for our students, which is why we're all here. So know that I am sending all the good vibes that I can to you all, and I really feel for you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you.